My name is Ted. I'm currently single and working at a company. Today, I came to a hotel for my high school reunion. But then, people with low incomes can never afford a car. The one arrogantly making this statement behind me is my classmate, Alex. Alex looked at my face and burst into loud laughter, without noticing the person approaching from behind him. I grew up in a single-parent household. It was me, my brother, and our mom living in an old house. My father passed away from illness shortly after my brother was born. I hardly have any memories of my father. They say he was a frail man who couldn't work much. Because of that, although both my parents worked, our family was poor. I think it was also because of my father's medical expenses. Then I was born, and my brother was born. My brother was also weak and spent most of the year in the hospital. So, my mom was always at the hospital. She would make my breakfast early in the morning, drop me off at daycare, and then go to the hospital. After that, she would work part-time, stop by the hospital on her way back, pick me up from daycare, and go home. She'd do the housework, sleep, wake up, and repeat this every day. That was her routine. By the time I was old enough to understand, this was normal to me, so I never felt lonely. I thought I had to make sure my brother, Chris, didn't feel lonely because he had a weak body. Mom, I'm okay. Chris would be sad if he's lonely. He's going through a tough time, so please be with him. I used to say this to my mom a lot. And it seems my words made her feel forgiven. Even when I started elementary school, our routine didn't change much. One thing did change: the daycare used to keep me until 8 p.m., but the after-school program only kept me until 6 p.m. I stayed at the after-school program until 6 p.m., then went home with my key, turned on the lights in the dark house, did my homework, and waited for my mom to come back. At first, I thought about cooking, cleaning, or bringing in the laundry. But after I fell off the porch while bringing in the laundry, my mom told me not to do anything. I thought I was keeping it a secret. I tried to act like nothing happened when she came home. But when she saw the bandages on my scraped knee and palms, she immediately knew. She rushed to me with a tearful face. Ted, if something happened to you, I wouldn't be able to go on. It's nothing. I'm sorry, Mom. I just wanted to help you. You've already done so much. It's okay, alright? I'll take care of the laundry. Just promise me you won't try to climb and bring in the laundry from the balcony, okay? Okay. I'll help when I get bigger and can reach it. Thank you. Maybe when you're in 4th grade? She patted my head. In truth, I wanted to cook and wait for her to come home, tired from work. But using the stove and knives alone was still too dangerous for me. I thought I could handle cleaning, so I tried using the vacuum cleaner, but I was told it was too soon for that too. Instead, I started using a hand mop for cleaning. Mom always praised me, saying, "Ted, it's a big help that you clean up." The same went for studying. I was good at it. I wasn't particularly smart. But spending so much time alone or at the after-school program naturally meant I had a lot of time to do homework and study. So, I completed my homework perfectly, and in my spare time, I played with math drills and even studied Spanish. As a result, my grades improved. Mom praised me when she saw my test results. Ted, you're really hardworking. I was happy to be called smart, but my mother always praised me by saying, "You're a hard worker." I was pleased with that. I was thrilled that she acknowledged my effort and noticed me, so I was always close to her. However, our time together was short. In the mornings, she always left the house earlier than me. After I started elementary school and became more independent, she took on an early morning job. I always reheated the breakfast she made, and her handwritten note would send me off with, "Have a great day." After school, I went to the after-school program, and at 6 p.m., I headed home. I'd clean the house and wait. Mom never came home before 8 p.m. I'd take a bath, study, and wait. She'd come home after 8 p.m., we'd have dinner, and by 10 p.m., we'd go to bed. I loved holding my mom's hand. Even without words, holding her hand gave me a sense of warmth. When I felt lonely, I'd secretly grasp one of her handkerchiefs hanging out to dry. I'd tell myself to endure because I was the big brother. Chris was having a hard time. Chris couldn't even go to school. I wasn't suffering, and I could go to school. I felt grateful for that. So, I shouldn't feel lonely. I shouldn't trouble mom. I'm the big brother, so I'll be fine. By the time I was in middle grades, I could bring in the laundry and handle the vacuum cleaner. I started with making simple vegetable salads and gradually began cooking more complex meals. I was happy about that. Mom repeatedly instructed me on handling knives and using the stove, emphasizing the need for extreme caution. Everyone starts using these things eventually. You might get small cuts at first, but avoid major injuries at all costs. Be overly cautious. All right? Please. She gently told me. I was thrilled that she trusted me. This made me work even harder on chores and studying. By the time I was in upper elementary, I could handle most household tasks. This significantly eased Mom's burden, and I was incredibly happy to contribute to the family. I also started doing the grocery shopping, naturally learning how to save money. Before payday, money would get tight, so we'd sometimes get by with bean sprouts. When we were low on rice, we'd stretch it out as porridge. I always thought about how to make meals for my mom and me as delicious as possible. I kept studying, and by the time I entered junior high, I was always at the top of my class. But there was always one guy who made fun of me. His name was Alex. This guy had been picking on me since first grade. "Hey, Ted. You don't have this, do you?" He'd wave the latest game console in front of me. "No, I don't." "And aren't we not supposed to bring games to school?" "Shut up. It's fine as long as you don't get caught." "Is your life any fun just studying all the time?" "You're such a boring guy." "I'm going to a party soon." "A party? Ever been to one?" "No, but I'm happy as I am." "Just leave me alone." I wasn't exactly antisocial, though. There were other kids from poor families in my class. And kids whose parents both worked and stayed at the after-school program until the end like me. We had an unspoken understanding, and I played with them using the toys at the after-school program, so I never felt sad. "Hey, have you ever been to karaoke?" "No, I haven't." "Karaoke is amazing. There's a screen on the wall. Did you know that? And there's a phone in the room where you can place orders. And when you order, the staff brings it right away. Isn't that awesome?" "Yeah, that sounds great. You want to go too, right?" "No, I'm good." "You're such a boring guy." "I'm offering to treat you. Don't you secretly want to go?" "Just say, 'Alex, treat me.' I don't need it. Anyway, I'm going to the after-school program, so I'm heading home." "Hey, wait up." I left Alex yelling behind me. Alex was pretty good at studying. Whenever the teacher asked, "Who knows the answer to this question?" he'd raise his hand. He wanted to be a class representative and participate in events, and since he was tall and athletic, he was popular with the girls. He always boasted about his wealthy family and had the latest toys and games. He'd invite a bunch of classmates to his house to play with them. I'd never been, but I heard they always had plenty of foreign snacks. I didn't mind that he enjoyed those things, but I wished he wouldn't try to impose them on me. Even after entering junior high, Alex was still in the same school. I actually got into a super famous private school, but this one's closer to home. He'd always say so. He really was one of the top students in the class. He was athletic too. Still tall, still handsome, and popular with the girls. He wanted to join the soccer team and kept pestering me to join too. "Hey, Ted. You should join the soccer team." "No, I'm not joining any teams. Soccer players are popular, you know? I don't need to be popular." "Why are you giving up?" "You're missing out on the fun of youth." "I'm not giving up. I'm focusing on household chores." "That's so lame. That kind of thinking is outdated. In the future, values that don't depend on gender will be mainstream." "You're so annoying. Just join the soccer team already." "Well, I'm off to visit my brother at the hospital." I left Alex shouting behind me and headed to the hospital with a change of clothes for my brother. When I started junior high, I stopped going to the after-school program. Instead, I would go to the hospital after school to change my brother's clothes, spend about an hour talking with him, and then head home. Mom was grateful because this allowed her to work longer hours. I worried that she might collapse from overwork. If Mom collapsed, I'd be all alone. I wished she could rest a bit, even if it meant eating stir-fried bean sprouts every day. After visiting the hospital each day, I'd do the shopping on the way home. Once home, I'd do the housework and then study. Mom would come home around 8 p.m., and we'd eat dinner together, take a bath, and then I'd study some more before going to bed. Mom, just wait 3 more years. When I graduate from junior high, I'll start working right away. One day, I said this to her. But Mom was shocked and responded firmly. Ted, you must go to college. No way. You're too talented for that. But why? You're working so many hours every day. You'll collapse. It's normal for a parent to support their children. I'm doing this for you and Chris, and I can handle it. You have your own life, Ted. You can't just get by for the moment. Life is long, and in the real world, education often determines your opportunities. If you only have a junior high education, life will be tough. Understand? It's strange that your worth is determined by your education. But that's the world we live in. Even so, I'd rather work now for the present than go to college for the future. Please, do it for me, Ted. Go to college. We argued for a while, but in the end, I gave in. Usually, Mom would propose a compromise or respect my wishes, but this time she wouldn't budge. I agreed to borrow student loans and work part-time to attend high school and college. When I started junior high, I spent about an hour each evening with Chris. When he was feeling well, I helped him with his studies and talked about school. Chris was often hospitalized, but he dreamed of becoming an independent adult. To prepare him for the future, I told him about the outside world, which he found fascinating. Chris listened to all of it with wide eyes and a cheerful smile, clearly enjoying himself. Even the most trivial stories seemed fresh to Chris. For me, Chris and Mom were everything. No new game or fun activity mattered. In the fall of my first year in junior high, there was an election for the student council for the following year. Each class had to decide on one volunteered candidate and one nominated candidate. When deciding the nominated candidate, someone in the class said, "I think Ted should do it." I was stunned. What are they talking about? I thought there was no way I could handle such a significant role. At first, I wondered if it was a joke, but the person who nominated me seemed sincere. Everyone else seemed calm about it. I was the only one feeling nervous. Then one of Alex's female followers raised her hand and said, "I think Alex should do it." This led to a runoff between Alex and me. In the end, I won by 3 votes. Alex's glare was intense. Alex then ran for the student council through the volunteered candidate slot. Out of 5 classes, 10 candidates would be selected. Alex's supporters cheered with glittery fans. Candidates wore sashes and campaigned during morning and evening commutes. It felt like a festival. Alex's followers trailing behind him reminded me of fans following a pop star. I'm sure Alex will win. I'll make sure you get the most votes. We'll combine all our efforts. I'll ask the seniors in our club to vote too. As for me, I was too busy with household duties to campaign in the mornings and after school. I tried to get my homeroom teacher to let someone else take my place, but he said, "Campaigning is voluntary, so you'll be fine." So, I reluctantly participated. I worried that if I came in dead last, it would be embarrassing. Then came election day. The candidate and their sponsor each had a 2-minute time slot for speeches, and it was during that time that the sponsor spoke. Ted comes from a single-parent household. His brother has been hospitalized for a long time. Ted's mom has worked hard, taking on the role of both parents, and Ted has been handling household chores since elementary school. Despite this, he's always been the top student in his grade. Even in junior high, he remains at the top. I hadn't expected this. Although I hadn't hidden it and all my friends from elementary school knew, I never expected my private life to be exposed in front of everyone. I feared being mocked, but instead, the students responded with comments like, "That's amazing," and "He's incredible." I didn't do all this for praise. I did it so my beloved family could live better lives. So, I felt embarrassed. But it also made me happy to know some people were paying attention. Then came the results. No way. The election results were posted the next day, and I was surprised when I saw them. My name was at the top of the list. As a result, the student council for the new second-year students included me in first place, Alex in second, and 2 girls. Alex's female supporters seemed very disappointed, but some girls said, "It's nice to have serious Ted and cheerful Alex, it balances out." Having been elected, I decided to give my best in my student council duties. Committee activities took place during the 6th period every Wednesday. All students were part of some committee during this time. Those in the beautification committee cleaned, while those in the health committee checked the class first aid kits. At our junior high, there wasn't much need for additional student council activities in the mornings or after school, so I managed well. The only exception was raising and lowering the flags in the morning and evening, which took about 10 minutes. I served as a student council member in both my second and third years and went on to the top public high school in the county. There, I was the top student upon entry and was tasked with giving the opening address. Alex, who also entered the same school, seemed envious. I was sick on the day of the exam, so I missed first place by 2 points to Ted, he loudly claimed. I didn't know if it was true or not, but he always made such statements. Alex remained as conspicuous as ever, with his outstanding looks. In middle school, he continued to grow taller, and his body, strengthened by soccer, became well built. Even as a guy, I thought he seemed likely to be popular. In high school, I continued student council activities. While I didn't always hold the top spot academically, I consistently ranked in the top 3. Thinking about my future, I decided it would be best to have a profession. I aimed for medical school. But I knew medical school was expensive. Then Mom showed me a bank book. "This is for you." Mom had saved up money from Dad's life insurance and added to it every month. I was shocked, knowing how much she had scrimped and saved every month. "How could you save so much with Chris's medical expenses? Ted, both you and Chris are precious to your father and me. We wanted to provide equally for both of you." Mom had saved as much for me as she had spent on Chris's medical care. I cried. And I made a vow. I would become a doctor capable of saving lives, like my brothers. I entered the medical course in high school and studied even harder, aiming for medical school. Alex also aimed to enter medical school, so we were in the same class for 3 years. While managing student council duties, I studied every day. I woke up early, had a newspaper delivery job. After coming home, I would make breakfast and a packed lunch, then see my mother off. Then I studied before heading to school. After classes and supplementary lessons, I visited my brother in the hospital to change his clothes. I did the shopping on the way home, cooked dinner, and studied. When Mom came home, we had dinner together. Then I took a shower, studied at night, and went to bed. I kept up this routine. As a result, I received an A rating for my preferred National University's medical school. Then came the day of the entrance exam. What? Chris? It was early in the morning and we were still sleeping. A call came from the hospital. Our house was small, so you could hear the phone ring from any room. From my room, I heard Mom's voice filled with shock. Chris, who had been suffering from the flu for a few days, had developed complications and was in critical condition. The doctor said we should be prepared for the worst and advised us to call the family. But in our case, it was just Mom and me. Naturally, I got ready to go to the hospital. "You need to take your exam." Mom spoke firmly. I shook my head. "Are you kidding? What's more important, the exam or Chris? Let's go quickly." I spoke calmly. This might be the last time I could see Chris. There would be another exam next year. Chris might not even have another day. Mom pleaded with me, tears in her eyes. "Please, Ted. Chris's life is important, but so is yours." Seeing her cry, I sent her ahead. I lied to her. "Okay, I'll go take the exam." But instead, I took the bus right behind hers to the hospital. When Mom saw me, she scolded me like never before. "This is your life." She cried. But knowing we shouldn't make a scene in the hospital, she respected my decision. Chris was in the ICU, connected to many machines. He was unconscious, and Mom and I held his hands for a while. Chris's condition suddenly worsened, and he was taken to the treatment room. After several hours, Chris miraculously pulled through. When the doctor said he's past the critical stage, the exam time was long over. I knew that if you got an infectious disease, you could retake the exam, but it didn't apply to my situation since I wasn't the one who was sick. I had already prepared for this, so it was okay. I accepted it as something that couldn't be helped. When I returned to school on Monday, Mr. Johnson, my homeroom teacher, said, "It must have been tough." Alex found me in the morning and grabbed me by the collar. "Why didn't you show up?" Alex also applied to the same local national university's medical school, so he knew that I hadn't shown up. I averted my eyes. I didn't understand why I was being blamed. Alex should be happy that one less rival showed up. Ignoring the deeper feelings behind Alex's actions, I made myself numb. "Let go, it hurts." That's all I said. "Are you kidding me? Did you run away? Were you too scared to face the exam?" "Yeah, that's right." It was easier to say that than to receive sympathy, so I answered that way. This only made Alex angrier. "Don't lie. Your brother survived, didn't he? You should have taken the exam, there was nothing you could have done at the hospital." So he knew the reason. I thought to myself. I knew painfully well that there was nothing I could have done at the hospital. But I wanted to be with my brother. There was no point explaining this to Alex. So I stayed silent. Alex, looking like he was about to cry, walked away at my lack of response. After graduation, since I hadn't applied for any private university as a backup, I had no choice but to graduate without a college acceptance. I hadn't applied for private universities because I couldn't afford the tuition. Despite my failure in the college entrance exam, I was asked to give the valedictory speech due to my excellent comprehensive grades and my role as a student council leader. Though I had doubts about whether I was the right person to do it, I fulfilled the request diligently. "Watch me. I will surpass you, no matter what." Alex said so before disappearing from my sight. 15 years have passed since graduation. I am now 33 years old. Today is the day of our class reunion. I took a taxi to the venue. The taxi stopped in front of the entrance. As I got out, I saw Alex stepping out of a foreign car with its parking lights on. I had no business with him, so I headed straight to the entrance. But then a voice called out from behind. "Wait up!" I turned around slowly. In front of me was Alex, looking his age. He was still tall and had a handsome face. His car was a sports car, and even though I wasn't knowledgeable about cars, I could tell it was a luxury vehicle. Noticing my gaze, Alex smiled smugly. "This? It's my car. Nice, isn't it?" "I'm not interested in cars," I said, heading toward the entrance. "Hey, it's been 15 years. Don't be so cold. Didn't you only graduate from high school? I'm a famous doctor now. Busy every day. Both at work and in my personal life. The ladies just can't get enough of me." Did Alex really go out of his way just to tell me this? "Alright, I'm going in," I said, heading to the hotel room for the first part of the reunion. Alex continued to shout from behind, but since he had parked his car on the street, he couldn't leave it unattended. Eventually, he probably parked in the hotel's parking lot and then came to the venue. Even at the first part of the reunion, I was busy avoiding Alex, who kept pestering me. The first party had ended. I stepped out of the venue. Waiting for me, once again, was Alex in front of his fancy car. He said, "Hey, Ted. Poor people will never be able to buy a car." He smirked arrogantly. I sighed. The sound of high heels approached from behind. Alex's eyes widened at the sight. "Whoa, she's gorgeous," he said, covering his mouth with his hand. "President Wagner, I've reserved a luxury hotel for the after-party," I told her. "Thanks, Karen." Alex was stunned by this interaction. "President Wagner?" My secretary, Karen, looked at Alex with a puzzled expression. She had a striking figure, a small face, big round eyes, and long, glossy hair. Everyone passing by couldn't help but stare at Karen. Although I haven't met many celebrities, Karen is often told she could easily blend in with them. Is this person an acquaintance of yours? I answered. Oh, just a former classmate. I see. I apologize for the late introduction. I'm Karen, Mr. Wagner's secretary. Karen bowed politely. Alex was frozen in place, awestruck by her beauty. Karen, ignoring Alex's reaction, gestured toward the waiting limousine. The car is ready. Please, go ahead. Thank you. Let's head to the after-party venue. Karen and I walked toward the limousine. As we walked away, Alex called out. Hey, Ted. Wait up. Karen and I turned around together. Since the driver was waiting, I didn't want to spend much time talking, but there was no choice when he shouted. You, with a gorgeous secretary, a limo, and a driver, you're the president? How did a poor high school grad like you end up like this? I sighed softly. Well, I can't stay long, so I'll keep it brief. I began to explain what happened after graduation. My mother, Emily, worked at a general hospital. There, she met a German doctor. He's now my stepfather. Apparently, he fell in love with my mom at first sight. He had remained single but fell for my mom just before he turned 50. They got married. My brother Chris, my mom, and I all moved to Germany. I attended a local university there. Chris, who needed specialized medical care, received surgery from my stepfather and recovered. The surgery would have cost tens of thousands of dollars, but my stepfather took care of it. With financial worries and concerns about my brother out of the way, I focused on my studies. I already had a strong foundation, so it wasn't too difficult. While studying German, I threw myself into my studies as a university student. During my time there, I started my own business. In America, I had aimed to become a doctor, but I discovered a passion for running a medical device company. The business took off, and acquiring other business, it has now become a group company. I work in Germany as the CEO of a company with thousands of employees. After hearing this, Alex said, Ted, no way. Yeah, that's right. My last name changed to a German one after my mom remarried. It's understandable that Alex, as a medical professional, knew about my company but didn't connect it with Ted Wagner. I now have a German surname. Anyway, I have to go. If you're coming to the after party, I'll see you there. I watched Alex stomp his feet in frustration through the rearview mirror as the car started moving. Karen and I are planning to get married next month. We've been dating for 2 years. I wanted to propose earlier, but the company kept me so busy that I couldn't find the time for my personal life, which I feel bad about. Starting next year, my brother will also begin working at our company gradually. Although he still has some concerns about his health, we're arranging things so he can work flexibly. I want to continue providing useful medical devices to many people. And as the head of my family, I also want to ensure my family's happiness. Not much going on here. Hey, you, dance over there. Just in your underwear. This is the kind of thing temps should do to liven things up. At the New Year's party, John, the son of President Smith, was getting handsy with a female employee, who clearly looked uncomfortable. Seeing her distress, I tried to divert his attention by talking to him, but he got irritated and barked that order at me for interrupting him. Other drunk employees started chanting for me to dance, making it impossible to refuse. Reluctantly, I took off my shirt and pants, leaving me in just my underwear, and started to dance. With a whatever happens, happens attitude, I decided to go all out with a silly dance, but a few days later, I got fired. Desperate, I decided to apply for a job at a major rival company. To my surprise, the young and beautiful president at the interview shook my hand and said, "Finally, you're here. I've been looking for you." What? David, want to grab lunch? Oh, sure. Invited by my colleague, Mike, we headed to a nearby diner. Since it was lunchtime, the place was quite crowded. We managed to get a table as soon as one opened up. We ordered set meals and chatted while waiting. At the next table, 2 women who looked like office workers were excitedly talking about their favorite pop group. What's so great about those lip-syncing dancers? I don't get it at all. Mike muttered, looking annoyed. Mike and I are both 32 years old. To men our age, teenage idol groups seem like nothing more than a high school play extension. I agreed with him, saying, "Yeah, really," and turned my attention to the menu on the wall. Though I hadn't told anyone, I was once part of a pop group in my teens. Ignoring the chattering women, I glanced at the menu, reminiscing about those days. While attending high school, I was part of a talent agency and performed as a pop artist. It was the era when groups like Silver Beat and Starfire were at the peak of their popularity. Our group was still small and not very well known, but we had released CDs and had some dedicated fans, mainly performing at live houses. We were determined to become as big as Silver Beat one day. With that goal, we worked hard in weekly lessons as a team. However, I wasn't particularly handsome, just average looking. Instead, I focused on honing my dancing skills, hoping to stand out in that area. I continued performing in the music industry for a year after graduating high school, but due to differences in direction among the members, our band disbanded. We all went our separate ways. Since I wasn't very popular, I tried pursuing a solo career but didn't gain much traction. Eventually, I ended up as a backup dancer for other artists, and as more and more young performers debuted, I began to question if I should continue in this field. By my late 20s, I retired from the entertainment industry. I then enrolled in a technical school for IT, aiming for a job. After registering with a temp agency, I worked at various IT companies. The company I was temping for now is an app development firm. They were known to offer permanent positions to temps. Motivated by this, I worked hard to secure a permanent position. However, 3 months after I started, John Smith, the president's son, joined the company as an experienced hire. Since then, the atmosphere in the department turned sour. John, leveraging his position as the president's son, did whatever he pleased. He was domineering with male employees and openly lecherous with female employees. He was particularly harsh on temps like me, often calling us for trivial tasks without any real need. Even when I had a pressing task due by noon, he'd interrupt with his errands, causing real trouble. Just the other day, he took over a young female employee's task and dumped it on me, saying, "That's a lot of data, must be tough. It'll take you half a day. I'll do it for you." Hey, David, you handle this data. As a temp, it's your job to support us full-timers. When a full-timer says that, temps have no choice but to comply. I had to stop my current work and start on the data as John ordered, finishing it by noon. Then, I hurriedly resumed my interrupted task and managed to complete it by the morning deadline. This kind of treatment is commonplace in this office. It's somewhat understandable for temps to receive one-sided orders. But his selfish behavior towards other employees gradually made him an outcast in the office. Despite this, Emily, a new female employee, became his favorite target. He persistently hit on her every day. At 22, she was the youngest and prettiest woman in the office. Because of this, he kept finding excuses to involve her in his work. However, Emily seemed to have a quiet personality. She couldn't refuse his daily advances and ended up working with him as he dictated. Feeling sorry for her, there was nothing I, as a temp, could do. I just pretended not to see, and each day passed by without me being able to help. On the first workday after the new year, after finishing the New Year's greetings and returning to my department, John was excitedly planning a New Year's party for the following week. However, none of my colleagues seemed enthusiastic about it. No one joined in on his excitement. I returned to my desk and began organizing my documents when John called out to me from behind. "David, we're having a New Year's party next week. You better come." It was supposed to be for full-time employees only. But Jake insisted on letting the temps join, so you're in. I didn't want to attend such a party, but it would be foolish to refuse and jeopardize my chances of becoming a full-time employee. I decided to quietly drink and told him I would attend. It seemed other temps couldn't refuse either and resigned themselves to participate. The party was held at a pub the following weekend. I wanted to sit at the edge of the table, but the manager, Jake, told me to mingle with the full-time employees. So I ended up sitting across from John, much to my dismay. Of all places, right in front of John, worst luck. Feeling disappointed, I saw him calling Emily over and telling her to sit next to him. She reluctantly moved from her chatty group of female employees to sit beside him. When she sat next to him, John happily started bragging. He went on about the car he drove, the brand of his suit, and how much his watch cost, talking only about himself. Emily nodded along, but it was obvious from her expression that she was just being polite. However, he didn't seem to notice this. Misinterpreting her politeness as interest, he began hitting on her. Initially, she managed to deflect his advances, but his behavior escalated to the point of touching her. Clearly uncomfortable, she glanced at me, silently asking for help. Honestly, I didn't want to talk to John. But I couldn't ignore her distressed look, so I kept talking to him, trying to divert his attention from Emily. As a result, John, unable to talk to her, grew increasingly irritated and finally decided to get rid of me. Not much going on here. David, you, dance over there. Just in your underwear. This is the kind of thing temps should do to liven things up. He suddenly shouted, and with everyone already tipsy, they enthusiastically supported his idea. Other drunk employees started chanting for me to dance, making it impossible to refuse. Reluctantly, I took off my shirt and pants, leaving me in just my underwear, and started to dance. To everyone's delight, I decided to go all out with a silly dance. The employees clapped and commented, surprisingly, he's a good dancer, while happily recording videos with their phones. As I danced amid the lively atmosphere, I saw an unbelievable sight. John was clinging to Emily, trying to kiss her in the middle of the party. Furious from being made to dance in such a humiliating manner, I impulsively danced over to them. I intentionally stepped between them, grabbed a beer bottle from the table, and poured it over John's head while still dancing. As I playfully doused him with beer, he flew into a rage and lunged at me. I continued to mock him with a smile, which only made him angrier. He turned red and swung at me. Other employees tried to intervene, but he couldn't be calmed and kept raging. The noise of our commotion seemed to echo throughout the place. The restaurant staff rushed over, asking us to keep it down. Although they managed to pacify John, the party atmosphere was ruined, and the New Year's party ended there. Even after we left the bar, his anger hadn't subsided, and he kept trying to come at me. Other employees held him back and urged me to leave first. So I did. On my way home, as the alcohol wore off, many thoughts ran through my head. I knew my chance at getting a full-time position at this company was over. Feeling dejected, I opened the door and went home. The next day, the atmosphere in the office was terrible. Jake called me into a separate room and asked me about the incident where I poured beer on John. Not wanting to involve Emily, I took the blame, saying it was a personal grudge. He calmly informed me that he would report the incident to the temp agency. However, knowing about John's problematic behavior towards temps, he said he wouldn't make a big deal out of it. Thanks to this, I only received a warning from the temp agency and avoided any severe consequences. John must have gotten a scolding from Jake. After that, he stopped persistently hitting on Emily. Instead, he began glaring at me whenever we crossed paths, but I ignored his looks and focused on my work. However, a few days after the New Year's party, I was suddenly informed by the temp agency that my contract was being terminated. When I asked why, they said it was because of sexual harassment complaints. Since I had no recollection of such behavior, I went to the company to find out what happened and was shown a video of me dancing in my underwear at the party. The complaint stated that I had danced provocatively despite the discomfort of the female employees. Furthermore, Jake said that while he didn't want to make a big issue out of the New Year's party, he couldn't overlook such behavior. And the company decided to end my contract. Despite repeatedly explaining that I was forced into the dance by the employees, the temp agency wouldn't listen. They told me I had to make my final farewells at the company the next day and leave. I've worked so hard aiming to become a full-time employee, but now it's really over. Feeling like an empty shell, I said okay and left the temp agency. The next day, I went to the company to make my final goodbyes. After saying goodbye to everyone, I stood in front of John. I didn't want to talk to him, but I felt I needed to give a proper farewell. "Thank you for everything," I said. He smirked and replied, "It's good to get rid of someone who'd strip in front of women." I wanted to end things peacefully, but I couldn't help glaring at him and retorting, "You were the one who told me to strip and dance." I couldn't hold back and yelled at him. Jake and the other employees watched from a distance. "Even if I told you, you could have refused. If you didn't, it's your fault for the harassment. There's no way I could refuse. I muttered a small protest, but Jake intervened, saying, "That's enough." He then urged the employees to get back to work. Having no choice, I quietly left the office. As I waited for the elevator, Emily came running after me. "David, I'm sorry for causing you so much trouble." She bowed deeply in front of the elevator. "Emily, don't worry about it. This company and I weren't meant to be. I'll find something else, so don't worry." As I spoke, she seemed to want to say more but hesitated. When the elevator arrived and I stepped in, she handed me a note. "This company is hiring. Maybe you could apply." Just as she finished speaking, the elevator doors closed. I opened the note, and I saw it was for a well-known rival company. There's no way I could get into such a big company, I thought as I left the building. When I went to the temp agency to find my next placement, the sexual harassment allegations seemed to have followed me. They told me they couldn't find a new assignment for me. I realized I'd probably never work for that agency again. So, I terminated my contract with the temp agency and began looking for another job. The next day, I registered with another temp agency, but I couldn't find a placement as quickly as I had hoped. Nevertheless, I had to make a living. I scraped by with short-term part-time jobs while continuing my search. A few months later, I noticed a job listing for the company Emily had mentioned before, and I decided to apply, even though my hopes weren't high. This company was an app development firm founded by a young woman while she was still a student. It had grown rapidly to become a leading company in the industry. I applied through their mobile site and received an email with an interview schedule. I was surprised to even get an interview, but I figured I'd be rejected quickly. With this negative mindset, I headed to the interview. When I arrived at the company's headquarters, I was stunned by the size of the building. It was much larger than the building of my previous workplace. I found out the company was on the 14th floor. Up that high, huh? I pressed the button, and one of the 6 elevators immediately stopped. I nervously stepped into the elevator and pressed the button for the 14th floor. The high-speed elevator quickly arrived at the 14th floor. I entered the office and headed to the room prepared for the interview, where President Anderson was already seated. I straightened my posture out of nervousness. I had seen her photo on the company's website and thought she was quite beautiful and impressive for her age, but in person, she was even more stunning. She was the only one in the room, indicating she would be conducting the interview herself. I greeted her nervously. Suddenly, she looked intently at my face and then came closer, grasping my hand. "Finally, you're here. I've been looking for you." She looked up at me with a hopeful gaze, making me even more nervous in a different way. As I stood there, stunned, she released my hand and began speaking with a gentle smile. "I've heard about you from people at your previous company. They said you're very capable, David. Did you hear that from Emily?" I asked. She gave a vague response. It made me think Emily had recommended me. I silently thanked her. The interview proceeded smoothly, and I was officially hired as a full-time employee. I was so happy that I bought a can of beer to celebrate at home, even though I usually didn't drink. From the next day, I threw myself into my new job with enthusiasm. The company had a supportive environment, and all the employees were great to work with. I felt a strong responsibility to meet the expectations of Emily, who recommended me, and President Anderson, who hired me. I worked hard every day with that motivation. As a result, I gained recognition from my colleagues and gradually earned their trust. President Anderson was very friendly, often casually chatting with me in the office. I was so happy with my new job that I got a bit carried away. One day, I was in the break area and, without realizing President Anderson was nearby, started humming one of my old songs. From behind a pillar, she peeked out and said, "You seem to be having fun." Flustered, I apologized, "I'm sorry," but she just smiled warmly at me. "I like your singing, David." Feeling embarrassed, I scratched my head, blushing. About 2 months after I started at the new company, I got used to the job and became comfortable talking with my colleagues. I felt truly happy. I had never enjoyed work this much at any of my previous temp assignments. With meaningful work, friendly staff, and a wonderful boss, I was genuinely glad I had made the move. See you tomorrow. Take care. Today was fulfilling. Feeling satisfied as I headed home, I casually checked my social media and saw something trending that caught my eye. Idiot employee dancing naked. I tapped on the video with my thumb, and there I was, dancing in my underwear. It was the scene from the New Year's party at my old company. Why is that video? The description read, "Got rid of a vulgar employee." Those words were written in the description. And the account name on that video was familiar. Of course, it was John. I had seen this account when he showed me a video of his luxury car. The video was posted 2 months ago and had already garnered many comments. How could anyone strip in front of women? Is this the 80s? Only a creep would do this. This would definitely be unacceptable nowadays. Among the many comments criticizing me, some were trying to identify me. Isn't this the former pop artist, Alex? Yeah, it's Alex. How far he's fallen. Gross. He looks fat, doesn't he? The video had over 20,000 likes. Checking other social media platforms, I saw that the video had been widely shared. And some even knew where I worked now. Seeing that video made my previously contented mood plummet into despair. I stood there at the traffic light, staring at my phone until someone bumped into me from behind. Thinking back to my days on stage, basking in the adoration of fans. I never imagined I'd end up as a mere office worker. Reflecting on my hopeful teenage years, I felt pathetic. With heavy steps, I returned home and noticed an email in a folder I hadn't checked in a while, related to my old company. It was full of emails from John. So you were a pop artist? How humiliating to show such a disgraceful scene. This is your punishment for embarrassing me. I'll make sure the world sees how pathetic you've become. So John is the one who spread that video. That night, I couldn't eat dinner or sleep. A few days later, the video started appearing in videos by current events YouTubers, and searching my former stage name, Alex, brought up countless clips. I saw Alex at the station the other day. He must live around there. Let's track him down. Some people were even trying to find out where I lived. There were also phone inquiries to my company. Naturally, this affected how my colleagues viewed me. Am I going to have to leave this company too? By then, I had lost the enthusiasm I once had. In the morning, my alarm went off at the usual time. I tried to get up, but my body felt heavy. I had experienced a lot of gloomy days at my previous company, but I never thought I'd face the same situation again. Now, my past and my disgraceful dance were known to the public. The weight of this burden was far greater than anything I had felt before. Feeling down, I went to work, where the atmosphere seemed cold towards me. Even those who usually chatted with me were distant. The administrative assistant who always greeted me with a smile in the morning avoided eye contact. Despite being treated like a pariah, I still had to do my job. The day that used to fly by now seemed to drag on endlessly. At 3 p.m., with a sigh, I thought, 2 more hours to go. When President Anderson approached me. David, I have some free time today. How about we go out for a drink? She said, mimicking the act of drinking with her hand. I honestly wanted to go home right after work. But given that the busy president had taken the time to invite me, and feeling lonely with no one else talking to me, I accepted her invitation. After work, we went to a dining bar near the station. We ordered a Mediterranean course and wine, and after chatting for a while, she brought up the topic of that social media post. So that was why she invited me. Was she going to fire me because the company's name was involved? As I was having these negative thoughts, she unexpectedly started to comfort me. Everyone has pasts they'd rather forget, but the past is the past. The important thing is to keep moving forward. She said gently, her face slightly flushed from the wine. Yeah, it's pretty embarrassing. I'm sorry if this has caused the company any trouble. If you want, I can leave, I said, lowering my gaze. Then she said something astonishing. I'm not thinking of letting you go. Besides, didn't you do that dance to help someone? That girl? Emily, she's actually my sister. I stood there with my mouth half open in shock. She started to tell me about her relationship with her sister. When Emily was in elementary school, their parents divorced. President Anderson, then a high school student, stayed with their father, while Emily left with their mother. Emily had wanted her sister to help support their mother, but she couldn't bear to leave their father alone. This created a rift, and Emily stopped responding to her sister's attempts to contact her. Even after starting her own company, President Anderson found out that Emily had deliberately joined a rival firm, my old company. As she traced the rim of her wine glass with her finger, she spoke with a hint of sadness. Emily was so grateful for your help. But she felt responsible for your resignation and called me out of the blue. And then she mentioned that you might be Alex, the pop artist I used to like. She said that after receiving a call from her sister for the first time in ages, who told her to see for yourself before hanging up. Her old feelings came rushing back. I've been your fan for a long time, she said shyly, her face now a deeper shade of red. Ever since middle school, she had been a fan of mine. She watched my performances whenever she felt down, whether from school troubles, her parents' divorce, or challenges in starting her company. Even after I retired, she continued to find strength in my past videos. When I saw you at the interview, I recognized you immediately. I never expected you were working at the same place as my sister, she said, looking at me with her hands clasped on the table. You've helped me in so many ways, David. First with your singing and dancing, then by helping my sister, and now by working hard for my company. You mean a lot to me, she said, her eyes glistening with tears. I wanted to thank you earlier, but I didn't know how since you kept your past hidden. I was ready to quit, but this unexpected turn left me unsure of what to say. It was only natural to help your sister. She was clearly distressed, I said. With the alcohol giving me courage and knowing my true identity was revealed, I decided to be completely honest. I really appreciate you hiring me as a full-time employee. And knowing you've thought about me for so long. But look at me now. I've gained weight and aged. Seeing me like that must have been disappointing. As I said this, President Anderson, with teary eyes, chuckled and replied, your dance and singing were just like before, and smiled warmly. We locked eyes for a moment before bursting into laughter together. The next day, when I arrived at the office, President Anderson was already there. We exchanged morning greetings with the staff, and our eyes met. We had left the bar around 11 p.m. the night before. Since we were both a bit tipsy, we shared a taxi home. In the taxi, she held my hand and leaned her head on my shoulder. Now, seeing her at the office, I wasn't sure how to view her, whether as a boss or as a woman. Sensing my conflicted feelings, she teased me slightly. David, let's have a great day today, she said. Ah, yes. I'll do my best, I replied hastily. She chuckled softly and walked into the meeting room. I returned to the office and sat at my desk, but my heart was still racing. Could it be, am I falling for her? That day, I threw myself into work, trying to clear my mind, but even after I got home, I couldn't stop thinking about her. In fact, I became even more aware of her. The atmosphere in the office was still tense, with everyone avoiding me, but the way she looked at me was clearly the look of someone in love. Being looked at like that every day made it impossible for me not to notice her, no matter how much I tried to ignore it. I struggled every day to keep my feelings for her hidden. One day, my colleague, Jason, invited me to lunch. In an environment where everyone else was avoiding me, he was the only one who still treated me the same. We ordered our usual set meals at the diner and started eating when he suddenly brought up the video. That video of you is going viral. Everyone in the office seems to know about it. Must be tough. Yeah, there's nothing I can do to stop it, I replied reluctantly. He then mentioned a different video that had been uploaded. My resentment towards John grew as I wondered why he was so determined to ruin me, but Jason insisted I watch the new video. Look. It's not a video criticizing you. Check it out, he urged. I said, it's fine, really, but he insisted I watch it. Reluctantly, I pulled out my phone and checked the social media post he mentioned. The new video showed the scene from the party where John was harassing Emily. It captured him touching her and forcing himself close to her, as well as the conversation where he ordered me to dance naked, and my efforts to protect her. You really stood up for that girl, didn't you? Good job, Jason said, treating me to lunch as a token of appreciation. Within a week, my colleagues started apologizing to me one by one, saying they had misunderstood me. While I was relieved that they now knew the truth, I couldn't help but wonder who had recorded the video. I remembered people filming with their phones, but I didn't think anyone had captured the entire scene. A few days later, President Anderson invited me out for drinks again. Without hesitation, I accepted her invitation, and we went to a nearby buffet. We picked out some appetizers and sat down, chatting about work, when the conversation turned to Emily. Yesterday, I got a call from Emily for the first time in ages. She mentioned the New Year's party video, she said. Apparently, several young employees had been filming the party at John's request. John had edited the footage to only show my embarrassing dance and posted it online. Due to my past as a pop artist, the video went viral. It became a topic of conversation at my old company, and John boasted about getting me fired, flaunting his influence. However, my former colleagues, who had suffered under his arrogance, decided to upload the full video showing the true context. John's social media account, which initially had many likes, was now flooded with criticism, labeling him a harasser. His identity as the president's son was revealed, causing a huge scandal. The company faced backlash from clients, and the president, frustrated by John's poor work attitude and his struggles with client inquiries, became furious. Consequently, John was forcibly dismissed and kicked out of the house. On the other hand, I was praised for protecting a female colleague, even at the cost of humiliating myself. Old videos from my artist days resurfaced, and my name, Alex, gained newfound recognition. Journalists and tabloid reporters swarmed the company, making it impossible to work. And I even received offers from talent agencies to return to showbiz. Though tempted, I ultimately decided to decline. President Anderson, I'm so sorry for all the trouble this has caused. I apologized in her office. She invited me out for drinks again that night. With no reason to refuse, we went to a lounge after work, where Emily was already seated. "Long time no see, David," she greeted me. "Hi, Emily. It's been a while." As we exchanged greetings, President Anderson spoke up. "Please help me convince her to join our company. No matter how much I ask, she won't agree." I didn't say I wouldn't join, but I need to thank David first. "Thank you for protecting me," Emily said, giving me a heartfelt thanks. "I'm so sorry you were forced out of the company because of me. Please don't apologize. If you hadn't spoken to your sister, I would have been lost. I'm the one who should be thanking you." "Thank you, Emily." I nodded my head just like Emily did. She had already left her previous company, and her sister was trying to recruit her. After a pleasant meal together, we exchanged contact information, and I escorted the tipsy President Anderson home. At the station, we parted ways with Emily, and I got into a taxi with her. Seizing the moment, I mustered the courage to hold her hand, feeling emboldened by the alcohol. "Anna, I like you," I whispered in her ear. She placed her other hand over mine and replied softly, "I like you too." She leaned her head on my shoulder. And from that night on, we officially started dating. With a new goal and someone I loved, I found myself more motivated than ever at work. "Hey, this is my ex-husband. Look, he got demoted." Sam and I faced each other in silence. Sam's face turned pale. What an unbelievable coincidence. I let out an exasperated laugh. "You got transferred to Denver?" My wife Kylie's face turned grim. How could someone who'd always been at the headquarters suddenly get sent to the sticks? "Did you screw it up?" "No, that's not it." "Well, you're never going to tell me the truth anyway." "I'm not going, so you can go alone." How incompetent do you have to be to get a transfer like that? It's pathetic. Kylie left the room without finishing her meal. That would be the end of our conversation for tonight. My name is Harry. I've been transferred after working 20 years at the New York headquarters. Kylie and I got married 3 years after I started the job. She was a junior in college, and back then we were just club mates. After graduation, Kylie actively approached me. In hindsight, she must have liked where I worked. It's one of the leading publicly traded companies in the US. Because of that, Kylie must have decided I was a suitable marriage partner. She was an only child, and her father ran a business. He was generous and bold, and I feel Kylie was raised not so much spoiled but rather indulged. Back then, we enjoyed our time together, and she was also the most stylish and beautiful woman I knew, probably thanks to her wealth. Many of our friends admired her, and they were jealous of our marriage. Our primary requirement for choosing our house was its proximity to her parents' house. Considering Kylie was an only child, this seemed natural. My married sister also lived in the city, and I still had a younger brother in school living at home. I had no reason to live near my parents, so I agreed to Kylie's request. In retrospect, it was beneficial for our daughter Chloe, who was born later, but it may have had adverse effects on Kylie. Even after marriage, Kylie often put herself first, with her mother filling in the gaps. She'd make plans on a whim, wanting to go out with friends, drink, or relax alone, and would call her mother over. That's probably why Chloe became so close to her grandmother. Kylie's mother, while frustrated with Kylie's whims, had half given up. She often sighed, saying Kylie was just like her father. And she'd always apologize to me. If she took the traits of her father, no amount of upbringing could change her nature. I comforted her mother and was grateful for her help with Chloe. But as a mother, Kylie needed to step up. Even though her mother adored Chloe, arguments about raising her became more frequent. The first major challenge was applying for preschool. Kylie was embarrassed that she hadn't attended a private school. She failed her middle school entrance exams and entered a high school affiliated with a university, but felt out of place among students who had been together since middle school. So she wanted Chloe to take preschool entrance exams, but Chloe was born in summer. At 2 years old, she was too young compared to other children applying for the 3-year-old class. Neither I nor her parents were enthusiastic about Chloe starting it so early. Despite that, Kylie alone enrolled Chloe in preparatory classes and gathered information. But Chloe didn't want to be separated from her mother and couldn't focus on the lessons, falling short of Kylie's expectations. Eventually, Kylie got bored and gave up. As Chloe grew up, she became more capable, regularly becoming class rep in elementary school, excelling in sports and academics, and making many friends. Kylie was the first to bring up middle school entrance exams. Thinking ahead to college, she persuaded her 9-year-old daughter that it would be better to take the middle school entrance exam now, and that friends can only get along with each other if they start in middle school. As a few of Chloe's close friends started discussing entrance exams, she embraced the idea and set her goal for it. But that's where the real problems began. Chloe started to take lessons at a cram school. Yet, just because you attend a cram school doesn't mean your grades would skyrocket. A friend of mine who's a teacher once said that it's harder to improve the grades of top students than to help those scoring 50s or 60s reach 80. Chloe was exactly that prior case. Moreover, the content at the cram school is different from regular schoolwork. In 4th grade, they learn ahead of the elementary curriculum to build a foundation, and by 5th grade, they start on middle school entrance exam material. By the 6th grade, they are fully immersed in practical quizzes for their target schools. Although it's elementary students taking the exams, they're learning at a middle school level. Children who have already been putting in a lot of effort are asked to work even harder. Kids who are doing well might find they're not so exceptional once they start cram school. Many feel discouraged by this. Chloe, being diligent, persevered, but she went through a tough period without much improvement. Kylie never helped her with her studies or offered encouragement. Instead, she would say things like, "If you don't improve your scores, you can't play on Sundays. Everyone else is working harder." During the winter break of 5th grade, Chloe snapped. She threw her fork down at the dinner table and yelled, "You don't know anything, so stop meddling." Seeing this, Kylie didn't shift gears to align with our daughter. Instead, she doubled down, saying, "Do you know how worried I am? If you fail the exams, you'll be the one embarrassed." Seeing this, I stepped in, telling Kylie that I'd take over the tutoring and to stop pressuring our daughter. Kylie then lashed out at me, saying, "What do you know? You've been busy with work and indifferent." She left the table. "Do whatever you want. Let's see what happens." With that parting shot, she disappeared to the bedroom. I calmed Chloe down, got her to eat, and said, "But you did well." Chloe looked at me. Stress needs to be released, or it harms both mind and body. There might have been other ways, but I don't think standing up to your mom was wrong. Telling someone who's already trying hard to try harder is like adding extra weight to someone already carrying a load. Both you and your mom just had different approaches. We can fix that. But I made mom angry. Leave her be for now. She won't listen to anything in this state. It'll only make things worse. Apologize tomorrow. Sometimes, it's best to give people space. If Chloe went to apologize now, Kylie would only get angrier, venting all her unresolved frustrations. It would be best if Kylie could realize she overstepped and apologize first, but she never reflects on herself. Her mother, on the other hand, is excellent at this, which means Kylie takes it after her father. Her mother lived without ever hearing "I was wrong" from her husband, always being ordered around and bearing his frustrations. Yet she tried to appease him. It's pitiable to witness. After dinner, Chloe and I reviewed her missed questions. We need to figure out what's causing the slow growth and fix it. To solve the problem, we first had to identify the cause. I converted Chloe's cram school grades into data, creating graphs and tables for visual clarity. We identified her weaknesses and the causes of her mistakes. She frequently made careless errors. Simple calculation mistakes, misinterpretations of questions, and spelling errors. She was overconfident in her language arts skills, often neglecting to carefully review her answers. I stressed that achieving perfection in her strong subjects required meticulous attention. In math, her anxiety prevented her from focusing. While solving problems, she'd worry about the next one, whether she'd run out of time, and what she'd do if she couldn't solve it. I reassured her that practice would help her get used to it. She should solve the easy problems first and leave the difficult ones for later. I had her copy geometry problems into her notebook to familiarize herself with the shapes. Seeing her performance trends and results in Excel helped Chloe objectively assess herself and calmly tackle problems. Soon, this began to reflect in her results, and she started to regain confidence. Kylie, however, wasn't the kind of mother to fully celebrate Chloe's efforts. While we were pleased with Chloe's results, Kylie would warn her not to slack off or remind her that getting sick would negate her efforts. Her advice, though well-intentioned, was pessimistic and often demoralizing. Even I found it tough to handle. So I could only imagine how it affected our elementary school daughter. Can't you encourage Chloe a bit more? Why do you speak so cynically when all you have to do is say "well done"? You're so proud of yourself, aren't you? You think you've raised her grades with your teaching and are bragging about it, making me look bad. Why should I encourage her? Don't you care about your own daughter? Why is it always about you? Our arguments became more frequent, and eventually, I started sleeping in the study. It was since I found the bedroom door locked after helping Chloe with her studies. I used the master key to get in. But from that night on, we never slept together again. "Dad, will you come with me on the exam day?" Hearing Chloe's hesitant request, I took a day off to accompany her. I wanted to eliminate as many worries as possible. With a short window for admissions, some schools announce results on the day of the exam, requiring the enrollment fee to be paid by the next day. Having already secured a spot at her second-choice school, we needed to quickly decide where to pay the enrollment fee after the first-choice school's results were out. I planned ahead and requested time off at work. Fortunately, my boss, having gone through a similar experience with his son, understood and approved my leave. Despite Chloe's big win of getting into her first-choice school, Kylie remained cold and indifferent since that day. Even at the celebratory dinner hosted by her parents, she bristled at her father's comment about Chloe getting into a better school than her mother did, and made excuses on circumstances being different in her times. Her mother tried to smooth things over by suggesting we eat before the soup got cold, but Kylie snapped, "You don't understand. These two teamed up to make a fool of me, criticizing my ways and telling me not to interfere. They've ignored me and my efforts." "We didn't ignore you. We just analyzed Chloe's trends and identified her weaknesses." "That's ignoring me. Acting like your way is the only right way, while you were indifferent when I was helping her. I trusted you and didn't want to interfere. Don't be silly. You, who went to public school, can't understand the challenges of these exams." "Enough. Chloe's scream echoed like it had on that fateful day. "Mom, you're the one who said I should take the middle school exams. And I passed, didn't I? So why are you still complaining? If you wanted me to succeed, shouldn't you be happy, no matter whose method worked? Why do you act like it's a competition with Dad and you lost for it? I thought we'd all be happy when I passed, but instead, you're sulking and muttering to yourself. You shut up. Acting high and mighty just because you passed a middle school exam. Stop it, both of you. Fighting here is disgraceful. As a mother, you should be focusing on keeping the peace." Finally, Kylie fell silent at her mother's words. "Let's just eat. We don't want the steak to go to waste. It's been a while since we had a meal like this, not since my birthday." My father-in-law's words helped to calm things down. Kylie's mother started talking about the school entrance ceremony and commute times, trying to engage Chloe in a cheerful conversation. Chloe understood her grandmother's efforts to create a pleasant atmosphere, and shared stories about her friends and teachers to lighten the mood. Chloe, always willing to take on a leadership role, had a keen ability to read people and situations. Despite her young age, she often had to navigate her frustrations with an immature mother. Considering she'd been dealing with these struggles while preparing for her exams, no amount of support seemed enough. Once Chloe started middle school, she quickly adapted and thrived. Even Kylie settled down, telling Chloe to study at her own pace. However, our relationship didn't recover. Kylie played the role of a good mother in front of Chloe, making her lunch and seeing her off with a smile, engaging in conversations. But when it was just the two of us, the atmosphere was tense. When I asked how long she planned to keep the bedroom locked, she said, "It's fine as it is. We have different sleeping schedules anyway. We don't need any more children, and now that Chloe's exams are over, let's just live freely. I don't want to get any closer." She said this with a triumphant smile, and 2 years later, I got transferred with my job. I was sent to Denver as the head of employee training to revitalize the branch. When I informed Kylie again, she didn't believe me. Even if she did, she wouldn't have said, "I'll go with you." She probably felt relieved. A year after I moved to Denver, I received signed divorce papers. Now that Chloe has started high school, there's no need for us to stay together. A note with these words was attached. She must have taken one of Chloe's sticky notes. Even though it's an affiliated school, moving from middle to high school involves interviews. There was an unspoken rule that parents' divorce would be a disadvantage. Kylie had waited until Chloe entered high school to finalize her escalator-style progression from middle to high school, which Kylie had always wanted. This might have been Kylie's last duty as a mother. I had long suspected that Kylie had no interest in how I was living or what my life in Denver was like. Even if I returned to New York, it seemed impossible to mend our marriage. I no longer felt any desire to reconcile or make an effort to do so. I buried my sinking feelings by immersing myself in my work. The employees in Denver were all earnest and kind, and apart from the cold weather, there was nothing particularly tough. Chloe sometimes came to visit during her vacations. Every time I saw her, she seemed to have grown taller or changed her hairstyle, making me realize how much she was growing up. Chloe had decided to live with her grandparents when I was transferred, commuting from their house instead of ours. It was indeed easier to commute from their place without needing to change trains. But that wasn't the only reason. She declared during her visit to Denver that she no longer wanted to live with her mother. I've always felt that Mom and I didn't get along since I was a child. I tried to make an effort because I wanted to get along and see her smile. But it seems that if we don't get along, we just don't. Maybe it's not right to feel this way about your own parent. Chloe was cautious and not one to act lightly. Saying this out loud meant she had tried hard as a daughter and was crushed by the fruitless results. Her middle school exams were probably driven by a desire to be praised by her mother. I felt more apologetic than anything. Her grandparents were delighted, and even Kylie agreed. It made commuting and meal preparation easier. She must have been relieved. And living with Chloe might have been my father-in-law's last joy. One winter morning, he collapsed suddenly and never recovered. He had a stroke. He loved smoking and drinking till the end and was bold and daring. My mother-in-law gave a small smile, saying that she could forgive him for everything he had done for her. By the fact that he passed away without being hospitalized for a long time, and without her having to take care of him. I was grateful he passed without seeing our divorce. He constantly reminded me to take care of his willful daughter. That's why I couldn't shake off the guilt. Agreeing to the divorce as easily as accepting a direct mail was because he was no longer there, and perhaps it was easier for Kylie to ask too. As both a daughter and son-in-law, I felt I had wronged him. Chloe's affiliated high school was in a completely different location from the middle school. She had to change trains twice from her grandparents' house, making the commute inconvenient. Chloe wanted to live in the dormitory. She wanted to participate in morning self-study and evening sessions, which were better suited for boarding students. Commuting for an hour wasted time and energy. That was true. Without her grandfather, her grandmother no longer had to prepare 3 meals a day. Her grandfather was particular about food, so she must have felt much more relaxed. With Chloe around, the burdens never seemed to end, so Kylie supported the dorm life. Since it was what Chloe wanted, I agreed too. Not having to worry about accidents or bad weather was a relief. I was fully occupied with my work, and Kylie enjoyed a carefree single life. In the end, Chloe might have been the most mature and the biggest sacrifice in the family. But Chloe always worried about me and eagerly awaited my visits. For a man who had been cut off by his wife, my daughter was now my greatest reason for living and my greatest strength. That day, I had a meeting at a hotel lounge. They said they'd be about 30 minutes late, so I decided to go in and wait. Thinking this, I got off the elevator and headed to the club lounge. The club lounge is a special lounge reserved for guests staying on the club floor. Since today is an anniversary, I booked a nice room to celebrate. I was thinking it would be a good night when suddenly, "Oh, what's this?" A lady looked at me curiously. It was Kylie. She had just come out of the restroom. "It's been 3 years. What are you doing here? Isn't this place a bit too upscale for someone demoted to Denver? Are you here for business?" That was her first comment after not seeing me for so long. I didn't even feel like responding. "Hey, let me introduce you. Come on. This is my husband. You don't get opportunities like this." Kylie led me to a table at the back of the lounge. "This is Sam. Hey, this is my ex-husband. He got demoted to Denver. Sam is a deputy manager at Johnson Trading. It's one of the top 3 companies. So he's in a different league from you." I didn't even hear Kylie's triumphant voice. Sam and I faced each other in silence. I could see Sam's face turning pale. Kylie sat next to Sam, and I sat across from him. Trapped between the glowing skyline through the glass and Kylie, Sam had no escape. "Long time no see. What's this? Is it intentional? No way. I just found out now." I let out an exasperated laugh through my nose. "Really, what a coincidence. You're still up to the same old tricks. What are you talking about? Do you know each other?" "Oh, we know each other very well." "When was it again?" "I'm sorry. Please." Sam looked up at me, frightened. "What are you talking about?" Kylie, not understanding, was getting irritated but kept her voice down given the quiet setting. "What's wrong? Are you shaking?" Kylie grabbed Sam's arm. "Hold on to him. I'm going to tell everything now. Please, anything but that." "Then can you say it yourself? Not only have you failed to confess, but you've also been adding to your misdeeds. And do you even know who Kylie is? You're utterly worthless. Don't say such rude things. I'm really sorry." "If you're sorry, then tell everything from your own mouth." "I'll listen to everything you've done. What's going on?" Kylie, holding Sam's arm, leaned in to look at him. Sam closed his eyes and began to speak, having resigned himself. It was after Chloe had entered high school and moved into the dormitory. Kylie's father had passed away, and her mother was left alone. While Kylie thought that her mother would feel relieved without anyone to care for, the reality was that she was overwhelmed by a sense of emptiness. It was so sudden. If he had been hospitalized for at least 3 days, I could have prepared myself. But no, Dad was selfish to the end. Not wanting to suffer, and left just like that. Even though her husband had not been particularly considerate of his wife, seeing her mourning his loss made me realize they had a deep bond. Our marriage was beyond repair. Learning about our situation from Kylie left her mother feeling that her world was falling apart. Yet she maintained a brave front and continued with her daily life. One day, while she was tending to the garden alone, digging and replanting the flower beds, a salesman came by. Despite being in a suit, he carried heavy bags of fertilizer and soil, prompting my mother-in-law to make him coffee and listen to his story. Having lived with a stubborn old-fashioned husband for so long, my mother-in-law was charmed by the polite and soft-spoken man. That man was Sam. Sam skillfully wove tales of financial management for retirement. At first glance, it seemed like her husband had left behind a substantial inheritance, but upon closer inspection after his death, it became clear this was not the case. Unknown bank accounts surfaced, suggesting secret savings, but were followed by debts. And the life insurance had been cancelled without her knowledge, leaving my mother-in-law disillusioned. Her anxieties about her retirement made her susceptible to Sam's promises. However, being cautious, my mother-in-law did not jump in immediately. She requested detailed explanations over several days, and even treated him to lunch out of goodwill. The truth was, Sam was a professional scammer. He not only helped with the garden but also changed the fish tank water, assisted with sorting her husband's belongings, and even paid respects at the household altar. I first met Sam when I returned to New York for a colleague's daughter's wedding. After the wedding, I stopped by the in-laws' house. I had informed them beforehand, but my mother-in-law, thinking the wedding was on Sunday, was surprised to see me on a Saturday afternoon. Naturally, Sam was caught off guard as well. However, with the practiced ease of a seasoned salesman, he began explaining his financial schemes to me. I didn't believe a word of it from the start. But seeing how much my mother-in-law trusted him, I hesitated to expose him then and there. Unlike her usual anxious and timid demeanor under her husband's scrutiny, she was now lively and happy, offering fine coffee and sweets, proudly talking about how wonderful Sam was, both professionally and personally, and how he helped around the house. I couldn't help but reflect on my shortcomings as a son-in-law. I told her to wait, as I would join any investment she made, and left that day. Afterward, I conducted an investigation and discovered that Sam's story was entirely fabricated and his company didn't exist. Armed with this evidence, I went back to the in-laws' house, finding Sam having lunch with my mother-in-law who was serving her specialty: deep-fried food. She had said she would no longer make fried foods alone, as her body couldn't handle greasy food at her age. But she had already signed the contract with Sam. He had persuaded her by saying that the investment offer would expire at the end of the month, and that interest rates would drop significantly afterward, making it her best option. When I revealed that everything he said was a lie, it was not Sam, but my mother-in-law who clung to me, pleading, "Don't blame Sam. He's not at fault." "I knew everything," she cried. Sam and I were left speechless, and only my mother-in-law's sobs filled the room. She had given Sam $20,000 as an initial investment, saying she didn't care if the money never came back. She appreciated having someone visit, care for her, help with household chores, enjoy her cooking, promise to return, and listen to her stories and complaints. "It made me happy," she said. Sam hung his head. I couldn't look at my mother-in-law. If my home life with Kylie had been peaceful, she wouldn't have been so lonely. I felt ashamed. With Kylie living as she pleased, neglecting both our household and her parents, I couldn't consult her about future worries. Especially now that we no longer functioned as a married couple, I couldn't rely on her. If she had said something, I might have been able to help, even if Kylie found it annoying. But the distance was too great. With Chloe no longer around, I had no reason to visit frequently. I couldn't help but feel that we, as her family, bore responsibility for my mother-in-law becoming a victim. Sam deeply apologized to us, but my mother-in-law shook her head, saying, "You must have your own struggles too. Now that everything's out in the open, you won't come here anymore, will you? Even if I promise to keep your secret. You can't continue this work and face me again." "That's what I regret more than the money," she said, tears streaming down her face. It was heartbreaking to see. My mother-in-law made two requests to me. One was never to tell Kylie. The other was not to punish Sam. Thanks to my mother-in-law's sad yet generous heart, Sam managed to escape that situation. I looked at Sam, curled up in the lounge chair. You promised to change your ways, quit scamming, and come back when you had a legitimate job. Is this what you consider a legitimate job? Johnson Trading? A company that wouldn't hire someone who scammed elderly people. What kind of scheme did you use this time to become an elite employee? And since you're Kylie's husband now, it means you're still hiding the truth. Quite the talent you have, fooling 2 generations. Did you tell Kylie some sob story, like you did with my mother-in-law? Sam had told my mother-in-law that he was raised in an orphanage and had no family. He claimed that working in sales was tough but that Johnson Trading was the only company that didn't require a degree. He had garnered her sympathy by saying that, unlike others who could rely on family connections to expand their client base, he had no such support. What part of his story was true? There was nothing I could believe. Kylie's hand, which had been holding onto Sam, was now trembling in her lap. Sam was supposed to be 5 years younger than Kylie if what he had said was true. What had she believed in to remarry such a man? After being scammed, my mother-in-law developed dementia, possibly from the stress, and is now in a care facility. The scam should have remained a secret from Kylie, but our unexpected encounter exposed everything. For my mother-in-law, not understanding the situation might actually be a blessing. My phone vibrated. It was Chloe. She was on a graduation trip to South Korea with her classmates. They were visiting places related to some pop singer's debut anniversary. I placed my phone on the table and let Kylie hear. Even without the speakerphone, Chloe's excited voice was clear. Dad? We just got back to the hotel. I ate so much, my stomach's bursting. It was spicy but delicious. We visited all the landmark spots and took tons of photos. I'll make a slideshow and show you when I get back. The kimchi here is amazing. Totally different from what we get in the US. I'll bring some back for you. And don't worry, I got makeup for Sarah too. Don't worry about souvenirs, just have fun. Okay. I'll be back the day after tomorrow. You and Sarah should go on a honeymoon. She's so stylish, you should do something special for her. If you act too old-fashioned, she'll hate it. Ever since I saw Mom cheating when I was coming back from cram school, I've been hoping you'd find someone better and be happy. I know you stayed with her because of my schooling. I'm not a kid anymore. So enjoy your life more. I love Sarah, she's too good for you. Chloe laughed heartily. Poor Chloe had witnessed her mother's infidelity before even starting middle school, keeping the weight of that knowledge to herself. I decided to marry Sarah, my assistant in Denver who had supported me through everything. Originally, my transfer to Denver was supposed to be for 3 years. However, due to the improvements made at the branch, I was recalled to the headquarters after just 2 years. Sarah decided to quit her job and come with me. If I left you now, I'd regret it for the rest of my life, she said and proposed to me. She had seen through my hesitation, caused by my divorce. She was valued for her career, and she now works at a related company. Sarah, intelligent and kind, got along well with Chloe, teaching her to bake and sharing a love for pop singers. Okay, I'll call again tomorrow. We're going to chat and eat some snacks now. Don't overdo it. I won't, see you later. When I looked at Kylie, her eyes no longer tracked anything. She was likely overwhelmed by the flood of truth and reality. Harry, am I interrupting? Sarah had arrived. She was the main guest of honor today. It was her first birthday since we got married. No, it's fine. We're done talking. Oh, let me introduce you. This is my wife. Nice to meet you, I'm Sarah. Let's go. Aren't we drinking here? I ordered room service. I'd rather it be just the two of us. The room has a great view, you'll love it. I left with Sarah. I wondered where Kylie's life would have diverged if she could start over. Perhaps it was marrying me. Despite everything, I am grateful to Kylie for giving birth to Chloe. We couldn't find a straight path to happiness, and my heart aches for my mother-in-law. But I can't remain trapped in the past forever. I now have a new family, and I have the responsibility to watch over Chloe's future as her father. It was a night when I reaffirmed my resolve to live an honest life that my family can be proud of.